We prep them and we prime them for 2 weeks straight before we'll ever start to C-crawl. So a lot of times we'll do the eyes, Y's, T's, A's, scapular protraction, retraction, side walking on elbows. Another one is sitting, if they're sitting in their wheelchair right here, lateral propping, so then they still have to isometrically stabilize, and then threading the needle, right? So they're stretching on the opposite end. So there's a lot of priming that goes into before we hit the C-crawl. If they don't got the scapular strength, they're not gonna C-crawl. So we have to teach them the scapular strength first. And we'll actually start with ring sit before we go into C-crawl. Because in a ring sit position in the posterior prop, they have to learn scapular depression and retraction, right? They can't hang out here. So we can teach them those scapular strength muscles before ever tapping into C-crawling, weight shifting, how to throw your head and whatnot. Okay, so we have landed in our long sit position, right? So again, you have to show them, right? That's the trick with the SCI for comps, is you always show them first. So what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have a stable hand and a mobility hand. One hand has to support them because they don't have trunk. Where the stability hand goes is totally specific to the patient. You always have to trial things out, right? So for them, again, let's say they don't have hands. They basically need to, I have them use their elbow and kind of dig their elbow using posterior delt to get them in the ring sit. Then they have to switch and come forward and use their elbow too. A lot of times they can hook too, so just know you can play with it, don't care which way you pick to put them in. So they can hook and use this motion, use their biceps, right? So this is their ring sit. You're gonna be tested not long sit to ring sit, don't care, ring sit to short sit, right? Because now I've got the patient, they crawled, they come into ring sit, and ring sit, this is where they put their shoes on, this is where they put their pants on, they can put their shirt on. So this is what we try and build for our OTs to get into their ADLs. This is how we pair up with our team. So once into ring sit, we want them into short sit, right? Because then we're prepping them for their transfers. As the videos I sent you guys is totally different. This is so generic. So they have to have a stable hand and a moving hand, right? So sometimes their stable hand can be inside the ring, sometimes it can be outside of the ring. I usually have them push away, because to me, a push is way easier than a pull. Like if you think about when you're weightlifting and all those things, pushing is easier. Like if you push a box away from you versus pulling a box towards you, right? I'm a pusher. So depending, they can use their socks if they want, their Ted hose, their sneakers, anything, I don't care. We're learning how to compensate, not restore at this point. So you have to have the stabilizing hand, and they're gonna push their leg away. Then they're gonna have to switch, and this time they're gonna pull their knee close, right? So I pushed it little inch by inch. Switch hands, push it away. Switch stabilizing hands, push. Switch hands, walk it away. It's gonna come off like that. Bring it back. So you're basically just cueing them to move each leg, right? And you gotta show them. So I'm not using my hands at all, and push. They'll end up in this position. When you end up in this position, you need to teach them how to scoot forward. And basically all they're doing is scap depressing with triceps and whipping, right? So what I do is I lock out, I lean forward. If I want my right hip forward, I'm gonna whip to my left, right? It's the same thing we learned with transfers. Head and butt cheeks go opposite directions. They may need to shimmy their hands forward. This leg still isn't on the ground. So I'm gonna whip my head over here. I'm gonna flex and whip. So you have to teach them to use their head and their trunk and their whipping to come into short sit. I'm gonna keep it that simple. So how are we gonna facilitate? So first you're gonna show them, talk about it, do a little spiel. Of course, if you pull in SCI, you're gonna get more than 1 minute to do your thing. If you get PNF, you better do it in a minute.
How many do we have to pick?
1.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be down and dirty, so hope you don't get SCI. I'm gonna have you scoot just a little bit forward so my legs.
Okay, we got 1.
And then take your shoes off. So I'm always gonna have them take their shoes off, right? Because shoes are gonna provide way too much traction on these vinyl mats, and it's gonna be very frustrating. A lot of times if they're still not able to move, what we can do is we can put a garbage bag underneath their feet to help, kind of like the powder board, for them to make it easier. I will always be in behind, because if they flop forward, the tension of their hamstrings and the tension of their back is gonna prevent them from eating it. So I don't really care if they flop forward, but if they flop backwards, they're gonna get scared and they can whack their dome. Also know, for long sit position, for if you do treat an SCI, you need 110 degree single leg raise. You don't want more than that. If you overstretch the hamstrings, right, then we're losing that tension that provides them stability. So if you are working on an SCI and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't get them into long sit, do a single leg raise, passive range. Check if they get 110 degrees. If they get 110, don't stretch them any further because we need some of that hamstring tension to provide stability in a long sit position. If they're only having a single leg raise of 60 degrees, like some of you had, then we do need to stretch the hamstrings because we need them to get in this position. So in the back of your mind, if you're working with an SCI and your CI or your PT's like stretch the hamstrings, make sure not to overstretch them because once they're overstretched, we can't get that tension back. Okay, so I'm always back here and I usually have a knee kind of in their spine, back there to provide the spinal cord. Okay, so she's gonna lean forward, okay, 2 forward. And I'm right here just in case for support. If she tips to the right, I got her. If she tips to the left, I got her. If she tips forward, doesn't matter, don't care. Okay, and she's gonna try and hook your elbow into your knee and try and bend it across. Good, and she has, let's say she doesn't have triceps, I'm gonna facilitate triceps right here and keep her locked out so she doesn't collapse, right? If she's a C6, she's gonna fall right here. She's gonna bring this hand back, and I'm gonna keep her stabilized here, and she's gonna get that into her ring sit. Again, depending on if they have posterior delt, if they have biceps, if they have hands, right? If they're a T1, I'm gonna just have them grab your ankles. So it all just depends, okay? Or do you have more range to go again? So again, it depends on piriformis, how flexible piriformis is to get into ring sit position. Okay, from here you're gonna keep this hand stable and you're gonna try and push this leg away from you. Go ahead, and you're gonna stabilize this hand and now push this leg close to you so you can come on the outside, push it. There you go, switch, push it away, stabilize, pull it forward. And then so you're just gonna cue them again for comps. Just keep it so incredibly simple. Get their legs off, stabilize it so they don't collapse, and then cue them on how to twist to get to the end of the mat. Okay, so what you're gonna, there you go. Well, you're kind of there, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
I got short legs.
You got short legs. So that's basically all you're gonna do. Of course, there's other ways. If they get exhausted or they're super strong, like some of our SCIs, all they can do is do scap depression like this and throw your head back and they'll come right forward. So no, there's 1,000 different ways to do these things. And Tita worked with us on SCI floor and she knows it doesn't work like this at all.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't work like this, but that's what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so all you're doing is cueing from ring sit. Don't even worry about long sit. It was just something for you guys to think about. I don't want to overload you again because you have 1 week to learn all this stuff. From ring sit to short sit. So remember, you have to demo first, and then you have to bring them in. Okay, give that a shot.
All right.